to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast.
Welcome to the Real Estate Entrepreneurs Podcast. Today, I have Mr. David Randolph, who, to me, is an expert in the short sales a real estate business. David, how's it going, brother?
It's going great, man. I'm so excited to be here. This is fun. I love talking about short sales.
Absolutely, man. But before we get into short sales, David, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, where you come from? Were you always rich? You know.
Yeah, no, I wasn't born with a silver spoon, but I'll tell you what, I was blessed because what happened was I was in the corporate world and I was climbing the corporate ladder. And I was in engineering background and technology, and I was getting patents for the company, and I was making pretty good money. And then what happened was, Ricardo, I went in one year for my result review with the head of personnel, and we're in the conference room, and they go through all the patents that I got and all this great performance and everything like that. And at the end, I'm waiting for my raise. What are you going to give me? And they said, well, you don't get any raise. I'm like, well, what do you mean? Why don't I get a raise? And they said, well, you're getting paid as much as the president of the company is getting paid. And no one gets paid more than the president. And I said, well, give him a raise. Right? So anyway, I found out I was climbing the corporate ladder in the wrong direction, made it to the top, and there's nothing there, Ricardo. There's nothing at the top. So I climbed back down from that ladder and went into real estate. My wife and I started real estate in 2009. We learned how to rehab houses. And so one of my claims to fame in St. Louis, which is where I live originally, is I rehab like 5 to 10 houses. I'm just a little guy. I rehab like 5 to 10 houses a year. But all my renovated houses in St. Louis that I've put on the MLS for sale, listed 265,000 and less, have sold in 7 days or less at list price or higher for 15 years. Okay. They're drop dead gorgeous houses, but I've got this unfair advantage, Ricardo, making $50,000 to $150,000 profit on each house. Now it's gross profit, of course. I try to be FTC compliant. I got cost of paper and computers and all these other things like that. But basically, I've been doing that by the method of short sale. That's my way of buying houses for 15 years. Now they're not on the MLS. They are not with a real estate agent. These are working with the homeowner, the family that's going to lose their home. I'm able to stop that and negotiate directly with the bank. Also, I'm a hard money lender. I've got like $3.5 million in cash in my IRAs, my retirement accounts, but I'm not retired. So I use it to lend to other rehabbers all across the country. I'll give them the money to buy it, the money to fix it, the money for the points, and the money for the monthly interest payment. So my heart is to help new people get started. Then another business model I got here is about 5 years ago. These really big name people that are out there in the industry said, hey, David, you need to teach other people how to do short sales. So now for 5 years, I've been teaching people how to do short sales all across the country and stuff. And that's kind of basically me. I'm just a little guy here, but I've been doing real estate for 15 years. And just learning and always getting better at everything that I do.
Nothing wrong with that, Dave. So sometimes being the little guy, I don't think there is a right or wrong. Like for you, it's right to be little. For some guys, it's right to be big. You know what I mean? Like I don't. At the end of the day, it's your own race. So whether you're doing 2 deals a year or 250 deals a year, you pick and choose your poison, right? So
Right.
I used to be caught up in all of that, Dave.
No, you are a really big guy.
Yeah, but I'm not anymore. So I would say that I descaled the way I do real estate. I used to do a lot of deals. I used to do 20, 10, 20 deals. Sometimes we have 50, 60 deals on the board. And I don't think that made me happier than just doing 2 or 3 deals. What it did was it increased the level of work, the level of responsibility, the stress, and it created a big rat race. Like it's like this big ass hamster wheel, Dave, that you get caught up on. And for a while, I I used to identify as a real estate investor for years. And if you ask me, it's like, Ricardo, what do you do? I'm a real estate investor, and this is what I do. I do fix and flips. I do wholesaling, things like that, right? And everything we do is at a scale. Well, it got to the point to where one day I said, "Do I really want to continue to be a real estate investor?" And the answer was no. Like I didn't really want to do it anymore. So at that point, what do you do? Because now you get into an identity crisis. Like, what am I, right? So I said, you know what? I'm gonna stop doing real estate for a whole year. I'm gonna focus on my VA business, something I had on the side that I didn't even know was a scalable and it was a good business to be on. And I just quit, man, and I focused on that. And now we do our real estate events and we have our VA company. And guess what? I still do deals, but I'm only doing a handful of deals. I'm doing the ones that I really can't say no to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, all right, I'm gonna make 50 grand on that one real quick. Okay, let's do that one, right? Or let's rehab this property that's in not that bad of a shape, but I'm not taking on bigger projects like I used to anymore. So, at the end of the day, it's whatever people feel like they want to do. I agree that there's no right or wrong. It just depends on what fits your bill. But Dave, how do you get into real estate? Like, what got you and your wife saying, especially in 2009 when the market was completely sideways?
Yeah. So, in 2009, yeah, we didn't know what we wanted to do in real estate, but we looked at the market and said, man, there's just people getting foreclosed everywhere, all across the country. How can we step into real estate and help families out, keep them out of foreclosure, help them try to save their home, or at least get them more time in the house, get the bank to pay them money, get them to be able to save their money up. And so we decided, I'm not saying there was a ministry for us because we intended to make money, but, it was a way that, we could have a personal relationship with a homeowner and help them out. Okay. And then when we would buy the house, because most people, they don't want to keep the house if it's run down or stuff like that, or it's a divorce, they don't want to keep the house. We could buy it and then fix it up and sell it and make a living at it. And so that was kind of the place to go. We didn't want to buy on the MLS because that was not very personal. You got one agent to another agent. And so we just preferred working with families and helping them out, keeping them out of foreclosure.
Have you done subject twos?
Well, yes and no. I mean, here's the problem. Why would I want to take over a loan? So here's a good example, a house I did on 1 Torrey Drive. You can look it up. The loan was $204,000, but I was able to negotiate with the bank and buy it for $29,600, okay, and sell it for $275,000. Now, would you want to subject to that? The answer is no, right? But see, some idiots out there in this guru subject to creative finance world that think, well, I'm just going to sub to everything. Well, you don't sub to it, if they may owe more than what it might be worth, or they owe more than what the bank is willing to accept. See, that's what's different about me. That's very unusual. See, I am the buyer and the negotiator. So these are not on the MLS. So I want to be really clear with your listeners. I do this myself, and I teach it this way, that you're the buyer and the negotiator with the bank. You're not using a real estate agent on the MLS. You're not going through a real estate agent on the MLS. You found the house, okay, and you're being the buyer and the negotiator with that. And so that lets you have a direct relationship in the results that you get. And so because of that, it's not about the house being, quote, underwater, right? I mean, if we ask all your viewers, do you put this on YouTube? Does this go on YouTube?
Yeah, of course. It's actually live on YouTube right now.
Oh, we're live on YouTube. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. And so I guess better not pick my nose.
But anyway, whatever, man. These people, they know what we do here, man. So we're just regular people like they are, Dave.
Yeah, there we go. So I'll do this. I'll say this. So everyone that might be listening in right now, put in the little comment thingy box on YouTube, what's your one sentence definition of a short sale? If we ask 10 investors, real estate investors, what's the definition of a short sale? They're all going to basically say it's when you owe more than what the house is worth. Right? That's what they'll all say. It's when you owe more than what the house is worth. Well, that's actually dead wrong. That is not the definition of a short sale. The definition is you miss one house payment. See, I can't do a short sale with a bank if they have not missed a house payment. Okay. And so therefore, for me, the definition is missing a payment. Okay. Now you can say, well, David, that's ridiculous. Haven't you heard of equity? Haven't you heard of being underwater? Haven't you heard of those things? Yeah, well, that's baloney. Look, I can back this up with statistics. There's a company called Black Knight. They're bought out by ICE, another company, and they're a data mortgage statistic company. And they did a study, Ricardo, of all the foreclosures in the United States over 30 years. And they took all these foreclosures, took the homeowners with 40% equity in their house, 40%. They could have snapped their fingers and sold that house on the MLS easily. But yet, Ricardo, 1/3, 30% went to foreclosure. They went to foreclosure anyway. You weren't there, Ricardo, and your listeners weren't there to help that family out. That's your short sale. That's the people that I help. I don't care about equity. I don't care what people think the house is worth. Equity is in the eye of the beholder, right? I mean, look at a rehabber. He puts his house up on the market at a really high price. Buyer comes in and they want to offer a lower price. Equity is a phantom. It doesn't mean anything. It's like art. You know, you got to be an artist to figure it out. So for me, the short sale is very broad than subject to. In other words, while subject to and creative finance is a big thing and short sales is a little niche inside of it, if you get to know me really well, the niche is like really big for me, right? I expand it way far out, okay? Because if I can get the bank to go from $204,000 loan to 29.6, now everything becomes a short sale for me.
How can we talk about the specific situation on how you were able to negotiate such a large discount on the property?
Well, it'd be like, 3 hours later, but basically here's the concept
Right.
that we do, okay, is that the bank is a 600-pound gorilla. They forced me in paying that price. I had no choice but to pay that, okay? They're going to come out there and send somebody to the house to determine the value of the property. It's not me determining that value. Now, what I can do is I can help out with doing things like getting a repair estimate for the house, okay, getting comps on the house, okay, and looking at some of that data so that we force the bank into looking at the real value. So in 15 years, I've only lost 5 short sales in 15 years, and all 5 of them were because of one single reason. That one reason was I was not at the house when the bank showed up. Okay, in a couple cases, the bank showed up a day early. Homeowner let them in the house, and I'm like, you just let strangers in your house? What did you do that for? They walked in, they walked right back out, and the appraiser turned in a really high price, and I couldn't stop it, in time for the foreclosure. Another one, my wife's mother passed away, and I couldn't be there. So you have to be at the house. You have to be there to help that appraiser get the data to do a real analysis of what the house is. Now, you may say that, well, it's really great. Well, that's important. I did tell you a step in we're not going to go 3 hours here, but a step in it. But here's another one that'll maybe help people understand it more quickly. Okay, I know. So even when the bank does this appraisal, I know the secrets to what they'll accept. See, real estate agents make this mistake all the time. The bank does an appraisal and they go out and try and find someone that's willing to pay what the appraisal is. Dead wrong. See, the bank won't, that's not what the bank is looking at. They don't care about the appraisal. Matter of fact, so I guess we have a problem here. We are live. So you might want to duck. I'm about to reveal something, and the government's drones that fly around, check, they're going to zap us when I tell this. So be ready to duck, Ricardo. I'm going to give away a secret here. So on an FHA loan, which is a buyer, the seller of the house, when they bought it originally, they got an FHA loan. Most people do that. They got an FHA loan, and that is an FHA short sale. Well, when the bank does an appraisal, the bank will accept. The bank will take 88% of that appraisal price. Don't offer the appraisal, Ricardo. 88%. If you wait 30 days more, they'll take 86%. 30 more days, 84%. Okay, so that's how the banks don't care about the appraisal; they care about the net. And so when you know those numbers like that, and so we're safe. I don't see any drones here, so we survived. But basically, and every loan type has a different one. I'll do another one real quickly. Conventional loans, conventional lender, okay, will take 45 to 55% of the appraisal. What the heck is that? Why don't they take the appraisal? It's because, I mean, have you heard of distressed sellers? You're a real estate investor. We
Yeah.
buy houses from distressed homeowners that need our help, right? That's what they are. Well, banks are distressed. Why are they distressed? Okay, well, have you heard of this thing called fiat currency? You give the bank $1 and they lend out $15. Okay, it's not their money. So what happens on a homeowner, if they miss their mortgage payment, it goes in reverse. So $100,000 loan, the bank has to go in reverse and take $1.5 million off their books that they can't lend out to other people. Okay, they can't lend it on car loans or house loans. They'd much rather take $50,000 so that they can go out and lend $750,000 to people. Another reason is if they get too many non-performing notes, too many of them, they get shut down. They don't become a bank anymore. They get all their toys taken away and kicked out of the sandbox. The FDIC comes on Friday at 5 o'clock and shuts them down, and they don't want that. So if they can get these loans off their books, they don't care what they get paid for it. Okay, they need them off their books. They're a distressed bank, and so that's how you can buy houses at less than what you might think or your viewers might be thinking that they've heard normally. I do
That's
it a
amazing.
completely different.
That's pretty good, man. I actually I did lose a short sale once, but it's because the lady that owned the property died, and she died the day of closing.
Well, that sucks.
It sucked, man. And the problem was that her kids didn't want to sign off on it, so they're like, nah. I rather for the bank to foreclose on it than some investor to take over the property. I wasn't even subdoing it. I was buying it cash.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and
You
they
should
didn't
have
want
done
to sign off on it. So
you should have done the Uncle Bernie thing, prop her up,
no, I mean it is what it is. When you do so many deals, at the time I was doing a lot of deals. Some of them go sideways for multiple reasons. So and I already had an appraisal. I had not an appraisal, but a survey. Like I had already put money into the closing, I would say, and
Yeah.
needless to say, we couldn't close on it.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
and I understand, you did what you did, but and you don't want to fight things sometimes, but I think you're in Texas. I think you could have enforced that contract probably with the heirs.
they were tough to deal with, man, and I have more properties to go after and to use that private money for, Dave, and I just went and did something else. So
Yeah.
you win some, you lose some, but can you tell us I would say what the basics of a short sale look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's really super simple. So all across the United States, the short sale process is federal. It's identical everywhere. Okay. And stuff. And so everything you do with the bank is the same. What's a little bit different is your marketing. And your marketing is different because of being in a state that's judicial, which means that the bank's got to go to a judge to do the foreclosure, or non-judicial, which is like Texas and Georgia and Missouri, where the bank doesn't have to go to a judge. They just have to post for 21 days in the legal newspaper. So that difference for your viewers, just understand that just means your letters go out much faster in Texas than they do in Florida or Illinois, where it's like, they got, 2 years or, 90 days or some longer amount of time. You instead of every 3 days with a letter to the seller, you go every 3 weeks, right? So that's real simple part there. Now, I just teach people to mail letters. It's as old as death and taxes. Okay, you can pay people to do it. You got a son living at home. Okay, you got a kid that's young and wants to sell. So direct mail. They call you and they say, "Help me! I'm going to lose my house." Okay, and I have to be out of it in 2 days or 3 days or 2 weeks. Hopefully, they give you more time than that. You're going to step in and stop that foreclosure date with the bank, and it's really easy. I can practically snap my fingers and stop a foreclosure date with the bank. It's so easy to do, and people don't understand that. There's some people in Texas that didn't understand that process, and they did things that they weren't supposed to do that caused them a lot of trouble.
Can we talk about that? About the correct way of stopping a foreclosure, Dave?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So
And by the way, before Dave does this, I'm just going to clarify: we're not giving any legal advice or tax advice or any of those things. We're just talking about our experience and how, in this case, how Dave it's being able to stop foreclosure. So I just want to clarify that, because then you get somebody out there that will go and, well, but Dave said on the podcast. I was like, all right, this is for informational purposes only, for education. So we're not attorneys, but this is what we do. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, and we're not even actors, playing one on TV
Right.
either, right? Yeah, no, and absolutely, you're correct. This is my own experience, and this is just my understanding of 15 years. Every situation is unique, and you got to consult your professional, in that. But let's just go ahead and take that. There's different types of loans, and so with an FHA, I can stop that 4 days before by simply calling the bank and applying regulation. It's FHA regulation 24-33. 24-33 regulation, and that requires the FHA to stop the foreclosure date to look at that. And then for a Fannie Mae loan, I can stop that 2 days before. And the secret technique to do that is to submit documents through the Fannie Mae portal. Okay. And let's take VA. So VA, I can stop it the day before with a phone call, just one phone call, okay, to a certain person at the VA and stop it. Okay. So those are the easy ways. You don't have to do. I've seen some people do crazy things like, turn in high-priced offers to the bank to make the bank think they're going to get pay off in full. That's illegal. That's fraud. Okay, you have
You're
contract.
lying because you're not necessarily planning on closing.
Right, exactly. And so you're doing that just to stop the foreclosure date, and that is wrong. You don't have to do that. You don't know what you're doing when you do that. Here's another way that's really super simple that's worked for 15 years. Okay, just ask the homeowner to consider filing bankruptcy, then it stops the foreclosure date. So there's many ways to stop it,
We stopped a few like that the day off the auction.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In the morning, they will go in and they will file at the county for bankruptcy. By the way, we're not recommending anybody to go do this, but this is how you stop a foreclosure. And in Texas, in my case, when we did this, it bought them like another 2 or 3 months of time, so we could get everything across the finish line, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's all you need.
Good. So, what's an average? I know you make 100. 100. I know your average it's pretty big on a short sale, right? On the profits, but nationwide, right? For the average Joe, he doesn't have 15 years of experience. They just getting started, but they may be learning from someone like you. What is an average profit for a short sale for someone doing a deal? Somebody that just got started, they learned from Dave, and now they went ahead and started finding their own deals.
Well, they're making more money than me, Ricardo. Okay, they're making more money. I'll give you an example. Just 2 weeks ago, Kevin, okay, in Pennsylvania, did his very first short sale, very first one. And in that short sale, the bank, in that short sale, Kevin paid $57,000 for the house. Now, it was a hoarder house, so he brought in 2 to 3 dumpsters to get everything out, right? Okay, and so he had a total now of $67,000 in it. Now, he's not a rehabber. He does not want to rehab, so he goes straight to the MLS with the house, straight on the MLS. The very first day, he gets an offer for $225,000 in cash. No appraisal, no inspections. His high offer was $245,000. Okay, so they're making more money than me. The banks are desperate, Ricardo. Right now, the banks are literally desperate to get rid of these houses. I just had the bank call me today. Did the bank ever call you on a short sale before? No. You called. Well, that bank just called me this afternoon. M&T Bank, okay, called me about a short sale. And they're literally desperate. I could give you other examples. A guy in Chattanooga, okay, John, Chattanooga, he bought it for $162,000. All he did was put $15,000 in paint. He painted the inside and he painted the outside. So 162 plus 15. I don't even know what that is. 180 something. Doesn't matter. He sold it for $305,000. Okay. In Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I can go all across the country. My students are making more than me,
Well, that's good. Now, what is your view on the state of short sales in 2025?
I was never someone that said there was a tidal wave of foreclosures coming. Back 3, 4, 5 years ago, people said a tidal wave. I was publicly saying no tidal wave. It's not going to happen, and I was right. Now I was right because I had inside information. Okay, and the inside information basically was basically the political environment was with an election year and stuff like that. They're not going to allow the banks to do that to people. Okay, but here was actually the big number one reason. Back in March of 2020, do you remember this thing that came out called COVID-19? You remember that? We had that pandemic. You remember it? And we had then the moratorium. Okay, and then we had a moratorium on homeowners making payments. So we knew about the renters, but homeowners did. So there was 18 months of no payments. And so what happened was that did end. Okay, but what happened is in that 18 months, all the law firms laid off all the attorneys because they're cheap. Now, my son's an attorney, so I can say that. But in June of 2020, I get an email from one of the local St. Louis attorneys saying, "Hey, Dave, would you teach me how to do real estate?" And I said, "Oh no, you're the bad guy. You're the devil. You work for the foreclosing attorney." He goes, "No, Dave. They fired my. Can I say ass on here? They fired my ass, Dave." Okay, that's what he told me and stuff. And so all these attorneys were laid off back in that 2020 timeframe, 2021 timeframe. So there was not the attorneys to do the tidal wave. Okay, now here's what's changed, and I'm going to actually sort of change my expectation or my model. I don't want to say predict because that I don't know what that even means, but I am changing my model because they shut down the CFPB, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Okay, that was a regulating body that was keeping the banks from stealing the homes from homeowners. Okay, that was a regulating body. CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, was just shut down in this new administration. Well, guess what happened the very next month? 1 month later, we had a 14% increase in foreclosures month over month, not for the year. 1 month to the next month, they immediately jumped 14%. Okay, and so now what I think is going to happen by July of 2025, okay, now, you can watch this, in 2026, 2027, see if I was right, but in July of 2025, I think they're going to declare that all these regulations that they had didn't do any good. Okay, and so now they're going to let the banks go ahead and foreclose because there's people that haven't made their payment for 5 years, and the banks are going to get with the law firms and say, "Hey, look, we have carte blanche ability now to foreclose. You start hiring the attorneys, we'll start giving you the work." Okay, and that's my calculation of what I think is going to happen about July of 2025. We're going to really see this kick off and really start to be a large ongoing increase in foreclosures. The official number last administration was 2.2 million homeowners, okay, that were late on their payment. As soon as the new administration came in, Newsweek released that it's really 6 million delinquent loans. Okay, it's actually 7 million, but Newsweek is at least in the new administration is at least closer that there's 6 million homeowners that are delinquent on their loan. You can't keep those going. We're 700 days late on payment. That's almost it was like near the 2009 timeframe. 700 days late is ludicrous on a payment. Most banks after 90 days they're supposed to take the house back, but right now all that was postponed and put off. And so I think that you ask me what's going to happen in short sales in the market. I think there's going to be a huge increase, and we've already seen it in just 1 month alone.
I'm looking at the stats right now, and it says in the first quarter of 2025, a total of 68,794 properties initiated the foreclosure property. So it's 14% up from last year.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, there's also like a month over month increase. I think it would be, let's see, we don't have April numbers yet. So it would have been, I think, February to March with it. But anyway, the point is it's going to continue to increase because the CFPB was shut down.
Okay, I see now. I was wondering why it was taking so long for these numbers to come out, because I've already seen on new constructions pricing getting slashed down. Like I was looking to buy a house, and the properties I was looking at in the Houston area were somewhere around the 600,000, and these houses are coming down $80,000, $100,000 in price, brand new homes. and they're sitting on the market for almost a year now. So I was wondering, like, when is the market going to correct? Because I think that's the correct way of calling it, is a correction, right? Because at some point, interest rates were so low that it was literally free money. And then that's when the price on property started climbing up, and people were rushing to buy properties. And now nobody's rushing to buy properties. The interest rates are up. New constructions are slashing pricing down, which means houses that are rehabbed or older in the same neighborhood are going to sell for a lot less. And then on top of that, you add all the COVID people that didn't pay their mortgage and negotiated either a back end payment or were behind on their payments for however many months. So I think it's a perfect storm about to brew, Dave, and people need to be aware that, you know what, if you learn how to do short sales now, you're gonna be able to monetize and materialize on that.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin and John in Pennsylvania and Chattanooga are doing it. I've been doing it for 15 years. This really isn't actually, this might be exciting to the people listening to this because you're bringing something new to them. And I really applaud your efforts and with your podcast to be able to help other investors out there learn things. But, I've been doing it for 15 years. And so whether it's going up or down, it doesn't actually matter to me. Once you know and have that skill, okay, you're working off the fact that the bank has got a situation where they are, going to get shut down if they have too many of these delinquent loans with it. And so, that's a continual thing, just like there's always distressed sellers.
So what are the number, you mentioned direct mail, right? But is that the only strategy you use for attracting motivated sellers?
Well, I mean, I am going directly to the publicly posted county legal newspaper. That's what I teach people to do. Okay. As a matter of fact, I've got a free video that shows you exactly how to find them on the internet. Okay. And so I teach you to go to the county legal newspaper for the person who has the foreclosure date that's posted, and you mail a letter to them. Okay, so this isn't a big mailing list or anything like that. This is a small mailing list directed. I only mail to 40 people a month in St. Louis, in my county, 40 people a month. This isn't guru $10,000 a month wholesale marketing budget.
Right.
This is 40. Can you mail to 40 people? That's what I have in St. Charles County. Now, St. Louis County has 200 a month, and St. Louis City has another, 50. So it's like 300. But every single month, just like Texas, okay, first Tuesday of every month, okay, Dallas, okay, I don't know if you're in Dallas or not, they have 600 a month. I got Rachel, my student in Dallas. She had to quit her job because she couldn't keep up with all the short sales. So she quit her 60-hour-a-week job so she could do more short sales with it and stuff because there's so many in Dallas on it.
Let me ask you a question, Dave, and this is something I just thought of. Have you been able to buy a short sale with hard money and then refinance it with like a DSCR loan?
Absolutely. So here's a trick. Write this down, you people listening to it. You always give the bank your offer cash as is. So to the bank, your contract is cash as is, but you never, ever buy a house in cash. Okay. You come to closing with a loan from a private lender or a hard money lender, and then you can refinance that into a DSCR loan. Every contract in America that I know of allows you to come to closing with financing as long as you don't change the other terms of the contract. So to the bank, cash as is, okay, because that's the way they're going to accept it. But then you come to closing. Do you think I'd have any trouble getting a loan for $29,600?
No.
Right. So get a hard money loan. Okay. Which, by the way, I do hard money lending. We said that earlier. So here's a guy that, right. There's a lot of hard money lenders, though.
What are your typical terms on a loan, Dave?
They're the highest in the country, Ricardo. Nobody charges more than I do. And I've been charging this for 12 years. I charge 8 points, which is 8%, and then 1.5% per month. So on a 6-month loan, that's 9%. Okay. Plus 8 plus 9. So there's nobody that charges any more than me. But I'm going to give you my contractors, my material suppliers, my product SKU numbers, and it goes on for like 2 more pages. I help you with the critical path. See, my heart is to help new rehabbers get started. These are for new people. There's no credit check. There's no tax returns. I'm giving you all the money. You pay it all back on the HUD statement. I give you money for pizza on Friday so your contractors don't go home early. So my lending is very unique, okay? And my rates are the highest in the country. But there are other hard money lenders that can lend you money on that short sale house. Hard money lenders can move fast enough, okay? If you got a HELOC maybe, then you could use a HELOC. Wherever you can get the money somewhere to buy the short sale. Don't use your own money.
Good deal. Um, so the way I'm glad I asked that question because when I was buying that short sale, I was buying it with private money. It wasn't hard money; it was private money. And I would say that the difference in between private money and hard money is that usually the hard money lender is asking for an appraisal. They're asking for more documents and things that are related to the loan than the private money lender. The private money lender is going to go and do their own appraisal, like we'll call it a desktop appraisal. And then they say, yeah, that's a deal that I will put money in. Here's the money. Here's how much I'm going to give you for acquisitions and how much I'm going to give you for the rehab if the person is going to rehab the property. Which, by the way, I bought a bunch of properties where I didn't ask for the rehab money. I just wanted to close on it, clean it all up, and put it back on the market, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
um,
You can hold. Let me be clear on this too. There are a bunch of idiots out there on YouTube talking about wholesaling short sales. They don't know their head from a hole in the ground. Okay. On it. Let me clear this up
of
for
course,
everybody.
let's do that, please.
Yeah, let me clear it up. Okay. You absolutely can. Yes, you can wholesale a short sale. Now, let me define that for you. Okay. Wholesaling. How do we define it? Here's how a wholesale is defined. A wholesale is when you buy a house and then resell it to somebody else. This is not assigning a contract. There are people that talk about wholesaling a short sale is illegal. It's not even possible, Ricardo. It's physically impossible to do what they're saying. And here's why. The bank approves the buyer, and only that buyer can buy on it. So you can't do the assignment to somebody else in that definition of a wholesale because the title company won't close on it. It will never happen. It's impossible to happen. But what you can do is you can close on it, okay, pay for it, and then the same day or the next day or 3 days later, sell it to the other buyer. I do that all the way. Any good wholesaler, and you probably know this, any good wholesaler, if they're making enough profit on it, you're not going to sign it anyway because they're going to see what you paid. So if you're making more than probably $30,000, I personally think you should always double close that wholesale because the buyer's going to get a little wishy-washy on you on the day of closing, okay? Because you're making too much money, for that. So in a short sale, you absolutely can wholesale it when you buy it, close on it, and then turn around and sell it to somebody else who brings their own money in. Okay, you have your money and they have their money, and so yes, you can wholesale short sales when you do it that way.
Well, I've done a double closing on it, right? Where
Double closing, yes.
I went ahead and lined up another buyer, and they had their own financing. And in some cases, some title companies will do the double close with the buyer's funds. When the buyer's funds arrive, so you just pay for 2 sets of title policy, basically. But because I know what I'm doing, you don't have to pay for 2 sets of title policy because one title policy is good for 30 days to do a double close. So if you find a bank, a title company that understands what you're doing and know what you're doing, you can take all your short sales over there and double close on them all day long with only paying one title policy. So, um,
And you're an advanced real estate investor, okay?
right.
But for the newbies out there, I would say to them, don't worry about it. Pay the extra 1,000 for the title insurance if you're making $100,000 profit. Don't worry. Don't let it.
Oh
keep
yeah,
you.
that's not even questionable. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I gotta pay you another $1,000. No big deal. Like, let's do it, right? But it allows you to. I wouldn't call it wholesale. I would call it wholetailing, right? Because
Right.
you are actually taking possession, even if it's 30 minutes, 5 minutes or whatever.
Right.
on the property. You go to all the double closes I've done, and my name is on it. Like I did take possession of that
Yeah.
property for
Yeah.
5 minutes. So
That's
um,
completely legal in a short sale. That's the right way to do it.
that's what would have kept some people out of troubles, Dave, if they would
Yes.
have just done that and didn't go the other route,
Right.
unfortunately. But Dave, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, there's a couple ways. So first of all, every month, Ricardo, I do a free 2-hour short sale workshop, free for your viewers. So,
Awesome.
so if they text the word intro, 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 to my phone number at 636 685 2990, 636 685 2990. Text the word intro. That will give you a Zoom link to register to get the Zoom link for a monthly. So I don't care if this is 2028 or when, to get that free 2-hour live Zoom session I do once a month on Zoom and learn more about short sales with it. Or they can go to my website, which is thedavidrandolph.com. Now, why is it that? Because davidrandolph.com was taken by somebody else and I was heartbroken. I was sad. It's like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. And then somebody else that knows me said, hey, wait, aren't you the David Randolph? I'm like, yeah, I'm the GoDaddy, Mr. GoDaddy. Give me the davidrandolph.com. So they can go to my website and get the same information from there. And Ricardo, too, since I lend all across the United States, if they want my 4-page lending document, if they text the word lend, LEND, to the same phone number, 636 685 2990, I'll send them my 4-page lending document. I lend all across. Oh, look at that fancy thing there you did.
That's it.
Yeah, holy cow.
Text the word intro.
Yeah, you're
636-685-2990. Guys, and if you want the document, text land and he'll give you the landing document. So
yeah. So I love helping people out. I want people to be, look, Ricardo, I can teach everybody how to do short sales and they can be successful. I'm here doing my short sale. You're over there doing your short sale with a bank. 2 verticals completely unrelated to each other. Okay. There are plenty of short sales around. Dallas has got like 600 a month. It's ludicrous. Okay.
wow.
There's 6 million delinquent homes.
Why do you think Dallas is being hit so hard?
I think that the market kind of turned flat a little bit. Well, let me tell you a super secret statistic, okay, on it. So you take FHA loans in the past 2 years, a homeowner that bought a house on an FHA loan, they love the house. They just qualified for a loan, right? They just were underwritten. They just moved in. They love it. In the past 2 years, the delinquency rate is 34%.
Wow.
60 days later more. Why do you miss your payment? Why would you do that? And, we don't know why. I think it's because the market may have turned flat and homeowners said, screw this. What happened to the American dream? They're not going to foreclose on me. I'm going to stop making my payment. I don't know. I'm guessing. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where that's coming from. But 34% of FHA loans in the past 2 years. Now, the overall statistic is even worse. You take all FHA loans in America, the delinquency rate is 12%. 1 out of every 10 homes in America is missing a payment on FHA. And one reason is they only put 3% down. They're underwater the day they bought it. Okay. And so all those are short sales.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, hit up David Randolph. He's an expert at short sales. He's going to help you how to do this if you're interested in learning how to do it. By the way, short sales have been around for ages. So this is something that it's very safe to do as long as you do it right. Okay, you got to follow the protocol. You got to follow the right steps. Dave is someone that knows how to do it. He actually does it better than I do. I just do it by nature, right? I just go put offers and things like that. But he has a system that works and he teaches people how to do it. He also has the funds to lend out. If you run across a good short sale and it's got plenty of equity on it and you did it right, Dave is gonna be more than happy to lend you the money on it. So with that being said, guys, don't forget to hit share, like, and subscribe. We will see you at a 10 Growth in Tampa, Florida, June 27th and the 28th. And I'm looking forward to see you there. Thank you so much for being here today, David. I appreciate you, my friend.
Thank you.
My pleasure.